Computer. There we go.
Cool. So this is like our first recording to share our knowledge and have some fun together. I convinced one good friend of mine and one of the smartest persons I've ever met to do this with me. So introduce yourself so people get to know who you are.
Okay, so I'm Angie Farlam, an NLP trainer, coach, and hypnotist. And I've been around for many years, just collecting lots of information and skills and techniques that I share with clients and everybody who's interested. And Alex and I connected quite a few years ago now, Alex, and we have some wonderful conversations, don't we?
Yeah, I think it was back in 2016, maybe.
It's a long time ago, yeah. It seems like yesterday in some ways, but yeah, it's scary. But yeah, so we have some lovely conversations, and I think at one point we said we should record these conversations. And there we are.
Yeah. So well, I'm Alex, better known as Chikorita. I'm a psychologist, also a hypnotist. I'm an ultra runner, and that's where I get a lot of insight, and a lot of our discussions come from stuff I learned on the go while I'm running. So yeah, let's see how this goes. So what was the topic you were suggesting we discuss today?
So I'm a runner as well.
Yes, she is.
Not in the same league as Chikorita. But
she's an ultra runner as well.
Runner. Yeah,
yeah, she's an ultra runner as well.
Yeah. So the topic I came up with just right now is what we resist persists. What we resist persists, and how it plays out in our life.
Okay, care to dive into it?
Well, yeah, it's like, people talk a lot about law of attraction. What we focus on is what we get. And I guess it's a little bit like that, in that what we resist persists. So if we're focusing on what's wrong in our life or what we can't do, then we get more of it. It persists. It's like we're not accepting. We're scared to perhaps go there. We're resisting, and so it keeps there. It keeps us stuck. And all we need to do is allow it to feel it, and that's where the change can happen.
Yeah, like I've seen it a lot. Like when you want to do, I don't know, in sports, if you're focusing like I cannot do this mistake, you're not like performing freely, and you're just focusing and not doing whatever it is that's your mistake, and you end up doing it. Or even if it happens, if you weren't thinking about it, and if it happens, I think you are like in this free state of mind where you just adjust and keep on going, instead of if you're resisting this specific thing and you do it, you feel like overwhelmed and like guilty, and like everything like closes up because it's the one thing you were supposed not to do.
Yeah, but it's like it's happening until we bring it into our conscious awareness. We don't even know we're doing it sometimes.
Yeah, but like sometimes it's like, why does it always happen to me? And you're not conscious that it's
why me?
Yeah, but I think we go like to this very essential thing that we need to start observing what we think, and not just like thinking it and believing it's real and just like going with that. Like sometimes it's like, oh, I always do this, and then you're stuck with that because you always do that.
That's right, because it's at an identity level. It's like the I straight away tells us it's me, it's who I am, it's what I do. And while you're at that level, it's very difficult to change. But when you're able to, like you say, step back and see and hear and notice that it's not who you are, it's a behavior that you're doing, then we become more aware and able to shift at some level.
Do you have an example of like a time in your life when you noticed this, and how did you shift it?
Heaps. I'm just thinking of one that's I can't do that. I can't. Oh, I can't run a marathon. I can't do that. My ex-husband ran the first Bradford Marathon in West Yorkshire in 1982. And I was heavily pregnant with my son, who's going to be 41 soon. And I was able to sort of run to the finish line with him, heavily pregnant. And I was very sort of in awe of his achievement. But it was something I could never do. And it's looking back now, it seems really funny because I've done a few marathons and a few ultra marathons, but back then it was something I could never do. And that shifted and that changed. So yeah.
When did it shift?
How did it shift? I didn't actually see myself or identify as a runner until I was 15. I was 51 when I, out of the blue, decided to do a 5K run. I'd done a little bit of running as a personal trainer throughout the years. I've done a few 10K runs when I was in my 30s, but never identified as a runner. It was something I did to get a little bit fitter, and it was always hard work and not something enjoyable. It was just not who I was. And then at 51, I entered this 5K, and things had got, like, technology had advanced by then, and they had the chips to sort of tell you your time. And I finished this 5K, which was really hard, and I was out of breath, and I was running with my young friend who was like half my age and just chatted the whole way. And I got to the end, and I think it was 32 minutes and 14 seconds or something. Can't remember exactly, except that on the results list, I think it was 14th out of 64 people in my age. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was just like 5 weeks of training. And it wasn't about competitive with anyone else. It was like competitive with me. I thought, if I can do that, I can do it faster. Something started to shift. And then I joined a local running club called Lazy Runners. And the idea behind Lazy Runners was that anybody can run. It's not just for elite athletes or people who see themselves as good runners. It was for anyone. And I joined that, and the support through the group was amazing, and we were all there for each other. And that's when I trained and actually realized I could actually run a marathon, and did a few. So that shifted round about that time. It was like, maybe I can do this.
Nice.
But I didn't know I was resisting it at the time. It's only looking back.
I'm gonna pinpoint it, like it comes back to our beliefs. So I think that's the next thing we're gonna talk about. But I'm gonna pinpoint that.
Pinpoint,
yeah.
because I'm smiling here because Chikorita, for anyone that's listening, always tells me that I pamper myself. And it's true. It's true that I have some sort of limiting belief that keeps me running at a pace that's comfortable. Yeah, and I'm working on shifting it.
Yeah, we've been working on that. But yeah, that, like, we'll come back to the belief thingy. But yeah, I think it's very interesting how just getting like this tiny taste of that maybe you could do it gets you hooked, because the
Yeah,
impossibility gets blown out of the window, and you get like this tiny bit of it
maybe.
might be like it may be possible. So what happens if I give it a go?
That's right. But not having that, it doesn't matter if we don't. It's just what happens if I give it a go. So you asked me, Alex, how have you got an example of you where you've shifted?
It's funny because I found like this weird pattern where if I have like a limiting belief that it's like a goal that's like really the next step, and I find it very difficult to break it. Like, for example, the last one was um my biggest run under 24 hours was 180 kilometers. So I was having like this limiting belief that 200 it was there, it's not there, and it's because external pressure or whatever. And it only makes sense in my mind, and it's easier for me to go for a bigger goal, because in my mind it's like failure, the possibility of failure is so much bigger than the possibility of achieving it. So I have absolutely no pressure in my mind, and I'm not thinking if I can do it or I cannot do it. It's more of a curiosity, like,
Yeah.
is it even possible? So instead of like focusing just in breaking the 200K, I entered a competition that was running from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, and it turned around to be like 450 kilometers. So I broke this limiting belief I've had of just being able to do a certain amount of miles and run even further. And now I know I can do it, and I don't have that set limit anymore. But for me, it became easier to, I think it's easier for me to attack bigger goals, because if it's right, like if it's the next step, it's so tangible, and it's like, I feel like I should be there, and that's the problem, the should, that I should be there next, that
Yeah.
it's like this weight on my shoulders and this sort of like pressure that I don't like. And
Okay.
if I go further, like
Ah,
I don't have like this limiting belief that I cannot do it. It's just a curiosity, like,
there's
could I
no
get there?
expectation. There's no, I should be able to do this. It's the unknown. So it's freeing. It's freeing because
Yeah,
there's no
it's
expectation.
like the possibility of failure is so much bigger.
That
So I
makes
have
it easier.
absolutely nothing to lose, which I'm gonna pinpoint there that too, because we never have anything to lose because nothing is actually ours. But we'll come back to that one.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that because even as you're saying it, I feel comfortable with that myself. Listening to you, I can say, oh, I get that. It's like, because the pressure's off because there's no expectation. There's not that I should be able to do this because it's a smaller shift. It's a massive shift. So
Yeah, and we
it's a
actually
curiosity.
I actually came to this conclusion after I had like a mental blockage about not enjoying some sort of race. And we were talking about it. I don't remember which race it was. It was a long time ago. And I was talking like, you know what? And I'm not enjoying this distance because I should be doing this. And you told me like, okay, what do you want to do? So I started exploring with curiosity. So that's how I found it, like the events I really wanted to do and stuff. And then when I got like sort of mental blockages with the next step to be able to overcome my limiting beliefs, I was like, what if I just do the same thing? What if I just search with curiosity instead of I should get here?
Nice.
And that's how we broke it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that word. I love the word curiosity because there's something, it's like I'm curious. I want to look into that. I want to do that. I want to explore it. It's not a should thing. It's a
Yeah,
want.
no,
It's a want to. It's like, oh,
it's exciting. Like as we grow up, we lose like this sense of exploring and freedom of like when you're a little kid, like it's not like I'm failing. It's just like, oh, I'll try again and I'll try again and I'll try again until I get it. Like we don't have this self-judgment and this external judgment and this social media judgment about stuff. We are just free to try and learn.
curious. Just like as babies, when we learn
Yeah,
so much, we learn complex stuff because we've got nothing getting in our way. We've got no thoughts getting in the way. We're just curious. We learn to
yeah.
walk. We learn to talk. We learn so much. And then those thoughts coming in, that's where we lose sight of it because that's when we start having the shoulds and the coulds and the
And creating structures, beliefs of ourselves that are not actually true.
yeah,
Like we like you may believe you're something, but every day you wake up, you have the opportunity to start from scratch. Like you got this core values, like that
yeah,
I hope that they're yours and not something that you're just following from someone else.
yeah,
But who you actually are, it's not like I think like we're so sometimes we get so stuck in I should be this, I should do that, and this is who I am. And that's not true because every day you wake up, you get the chance like to get a clean slate and be whoever you want to be on that day.
yeah. And I was probably another topic again, but values, because it's when we're not in alignment with our values, in that they're like innate, that it's like when we're not in alignment with them, that's when it gets a little bit, it feels uncomfortable. We don't always realize, again, like that freedom. I know freedom is a top value for me. I've got to feel that sense of freedom. Otherwise, I feel restricted. It gets in, I like that sense of freedom too. be, do, have, whatever. And but there is an expectation that can get in the way. Like, I'll give an example. Going to values is like, I did a values exercise many years ago. I first moved to Australia from the UK, and I had a lot of guilt at the time because I'd left my children behind. My children weren't babies. My son was already traveling. He was traveling around the world at the time. My daughter was living with her partner, and I had this vision that they're all going to come and live in Australia anyway. We were just setting the foundations, but it didn't happen. And I did this values exercise, and family is a high value of mine, but also freedom is. And when I did this, all the values are important to us. But when I did this values exercise, I had 8 values on there, and freedom and family were 2 of them. And it turned out freedom was top of the list and family was at the bottom. And I was like, oh my God, that's awful. I don't love my family. I do love my family. But
that's very important as well. Because some people get like so restricted, like they could be like, they could grow up in really toxic families, and just because they're their family, they're not willing like to grow and outgrow those limits and those beliefs and those abusive relationships. And it's just because it's your family, it doesn't mean like they're gonna control all your things, right? And I mean, you love your family, you have a pretty lovely family, but that doesn't mean that you gotta put them first. So it's okay that is your freedom has more value for you, and that's what makes you happy. Then that's it.
And it's also giving them freedom,
yeah,
to be themselves without mom hanging on to their,
because you value freedom.
Yeah, for them too.
So since it's so important for you, then you respect it in others.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
And it's so freeing, because people do it even now. People will say to me, oh, I don't know how you can do that, meaning how can you live in a different country to your children? It's like, I still have rules. It's like I want to be able to visit every year, and have quality time again, which this is in my mind what it means, quality time rather than quantity. But that's my map of the world. We all have different map of the world inside our mind of what it means. But when we're in alignment with our values, then it feels good.
Then you have peace. I think that like you got like we're all searching for peace, like, and we get lost in maybe thinking that this one thing's gonna give us peace, and it's not this one thing. It's just being like in alignment with who you truly are. Because you could be having a really bad day and really chaotic like season, but if you're like in balance with who you are, it's like you get to ride the wave, even if it's just like not so awesome that day, but you're still at peace with yourself. If you were to say like your 3 main ethos, like if you let's say you have like this creed of Angela's, what would be the ethos to be part of it? 3.
Like that sense of freedom. Health is a big deal for me. Like, health is just a word, isn't it? I love to exercise. I love the feeling that I feel having exercise. So it's high up.
What do you feel when you have exercise? Isn't it freedom?
Yeah. It is, especially when I'm out on the trails. I love being out in nature on those, and that's why I really take to the trail runs rather than running on a road when everybody's just want to get to the end and as quick as they can. When I'm on the trail, in fact, I probably could focus a lot more if I didn't just enjoy it so much. It's like, oh, it's so lovely out here, and then I'll have conversations with people along the way, and it's always supposed to be running here. So and that sense of freedom, it's got enjoyment. I've got to enjoy. If I'm not enjoying it, why bother? It's going to be fun. It can be still hard. It can still, it's not easy to do an ultra marathon, even at my pace. There's a lot of effort goes into it, you know. But
I'm gonna stop you right there before I continue. The pace is irrelevant. You still cover the same distance.
yeah, there's a belief in there about how fast I should be going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There is definitely. And I don't know why, because it doesn't matter.
It's like the tendency we have like to compare ourselves to others
I
at
think
some point.
my running buddy is very competitive and he's always reminding me as well. So it's like, just go. I don't know, it's a guy thing. I don't know. Um, and I don't, I've never been competitive in that I've got to be first. It's not ever been my thing. It's just about the experience of doing it, and getting to the end in one piece is a good thing. I don't know. It's like I'm just having this conversation now. It's like, what is it to me? It's fun. It's got to be, and fun is a high value. It's got to be fun. So you can be in difficult situations, and it sounds wrong to have fun in a difficult situation, but you can.
Well, no, I think that's like also a big problem we face nowadays. We think that hard things should be things that we gotta suffer through. And suffering is optional. Like you can be in deep pain and it could be very hard, but you can be having like a good time, even if it's hard and even if you're in pain.
Yeah.
But it's like this mindset that you're not gonna get anywhere if you don't suffer, and you don't. I don't think it's necessarily true. I mean, it's hard. It requires effort, discipline, and whatever. But if you like it, you're not suffering through it.
You can
Oh,
be
like even you're enjoying it.
was the pain. Well, there's a saying about it, isn't there? Pain, suffering. You don't have to. You can feel pain, but you don't have to suffer. There's actual saying around that. I can't remember what it is at the moment. But again, it's we all experience, physical pain, emotional pain, whatever. But it's how, again, it goes back to thought as to whether we're suffering through it. It's like, we can be in physical pain. But how we relate to that is coming from how we're making sense of it and our attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like pain. I don't want to be in pain. But am I suffering? I'm suffering if I linger and think about, I guess.
Or if you're avoiding the pain. Like that's
What
something.
you resist, you persist.
Yeah, like that's something I found out like in the races a long time ago. Like if I was avoiding like the uncomfortable and the pain and stuff, I would suffer way more once I got there, and then before and after.
Yeah.
And then I just welcome it. It's not like I want to be in pain, but I know that eventually at some point I'm going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just do the best of what I got through that patch.
I don't see you ever resisting it. You always go for it. It's like
Yeah, like
in the desert,
I,
in on your event from LA to Vegas. You just,
at some point I really started enjoying going into it because I found out like in this, I call it like going into the void, because like going into this point of like totally getting outside of what we're used to and being uncomfortable and exposed like to your reality physically, emotionally, and mentally and spiritually. Like I saw it like a great opportunity to actually grow. And I think one of the things I enjoy most in life is growing, like
yeah,
as a whole, as a being, not like just like, oh, I want to be a better runner or whatever that means. Just like, what am I learning from this experience, and what have I learned in the past, and what can I do? And so I crave a lot, like getting to this point of being like where I could be miserable if I'm not in a good mental place. And like lately, I even like, it's funny because when I have gotten to this point, it's like, in I think it was January, I had a 24-hour event, and I was just like, at the 6 hour mark, and my crew told me like, what do you need? And I was just like smiling and laughing, and I told them I need a new head right now. Like my thoughts, I don't like them. So it's fun just like watching them go through, because I don't like it where I'm right now, but it's gonna pass. So I
Well,
just keep going, and
even though you
if
were in that moment and you didn't like it and you were laughing, so there's the you that's in that moment of pain, but there's also the you that's aware of you in that moment.
yeah, like I've learned to, it's gonna, like if you're used to it, you're gonna totally get it. But if you're new to this, it's gonna take a while to get to it. But I learned to observe it. Like if I'm like in this bitchy moment inside my mind, I've learned like to observe it from the outside and just like laugh at it and say like, okay, I cannot change the train of thought right now. I'm just gonna let it go because it's trying to say something. And now I listen to it, and like sometimes in races, sometimes it's like the ego that's talking. So I've just like let it like talk, and then just look, okay, why are you here? Oh, to be better for whatever. Okay, what can you do? And then it shifts. Sometimes it's like maybe um insecurity or fear of the unknown, and it starts talking like, are we even gonna be able to do this? Are we? But if I always say like, I call it like the monsters, the voices, but I always say they're your very best friends, but you need to learn to listen.
Okay.
Because if you're just like resist it, all the noise, you're gonna start believing it. And you're like, this is so horrible, this is real, or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you like treat it like a friend that's in need and you just listen, you're gonna eventually have an advice and say, like, oh, you're suffering and you're listening to this because of this. So what can we do? And then you shift it into something positive.
I love that. I love that. And it so fits in with that what you resist persist. It really does. I'm curious that when it gets so loud, and how long does it take to okay, first of all, you've got to be aware of that. Is it the what are you aware of at first? Is it the voice or is it the feeling? What are you aware of first?
The noise, because I'm
Noise.
at a point in my life where I am peaceful. Like I can be excited, I can have fear, I can have whatever emotions going through my mind and body, but I can like see it, embrace it, and be peaceful with it, and just like
Yeah.
it's taking a lot of hard work, like conscious work, but now we're there. And unconscious work too. But now it's like now when I'm not like at peace, and it starts getting very noisy, like
So when you know you're
noisy
not at peace, is that a feeling of not being at peace?
and noise. I don't know how to explain it. Like my
Okay.
mind is like quiet, and it gets noisy inside. Like I get a lot of thoughts at the same time, like
Okay. Yeah.
bouncing back and forth.
So it's the noise that you're aware of.
Yeah.
And know those thoughts that are bouncing back and forth. How do you know which one to pay attention to?
I just I can, since I cannot quiet my mind, and if like say if it's an event, I'm already moving, so I'm starting to get like to the same level of movement that's in my head, so at least it starts like to flow. And what I do is like I grab the first thought that comes along, and it's like, oh, this is saying this, okay, like I'm not believing what I'm hearing,
Okay.
I'm just actually hearing because it's got something to say, and I let go. Then I don't cling to it, or I don't say I don't want to feel this, because if I say I don't want to feel it, it comes back, it comes back, it
Louder,
comes back.
louder. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just like, okay, it says like, I don't know, whatever. It's just like, oh, stop, this is not worth it, or whatever thingy, for example. I say like, oh, okay, and I let it go, and then the next thought comes in, and I listen to it and let it go. So it's like venting, but at the same time, I start getting an idea of what's happening. Like, what am I resisting? Like, what am I protecting in my mind? And
Okay.
then I can offer myself a solution.
Okay. It's fascinating. I often say I because I mastered anxieties from being like 3, that it's like there's a mini me that sits on my shoulder, and she's never shuts up. She's really noisy, and I'm never enough, and I can't do anything, and she's just horrible. But it's almost like she doesn't, it's not that she goes away, it's just that I'm sort of good at, I'm aware that she's it's like she's not always there, but I think she is. But sometimes when I become aware of her, and but usually with me it's a feeling. I'm aware of an icky feeling, and it's like I realize I'm listening to her, and at that point then it's sort of like, okay, what's she got to say? And it's like I'll listen and acknowledge, and it's almost like I'm making a decision. And I'm saying this, but I'm not even 100% sure if this is how it goes, but it feels like I listen and I acknowledge, and then I decide, is it worth listening to, or best to just sort of let it go. Now I don't know whether that's resistance or persistence, but it feels like I'm not resisting, I'm listening. And is it worth listening to? Is it the old pattern that's just protecting me and trying to keep me safe,
Yeah.
And that's because she's got a positive intention.
Yeah, that's like something we need to also understand. Like, even if the feelings are horrible, or you're hearing horrible stuff being said to you by yourself, it's it's all in the means of protecting you. Like, sometimes your body feels like having anxiety and not doing stuff. It's protecting you because it's like what it's accustomed to.
That's it. Yeah, yeah,
But something I also like that works a lot for me, and well, I've always been kind to myself, so I find it very odd when people are not kind to themselves, but apparently that's like the norm. But something that works a lot for me is like, if I start hearing like a lot of noise and I'm not yet at the point where I can distinguish what it's saying and how I can help myself, I just say like, okay, thank you, I promise we're okay, and you're doing awesome. And I start talking to myself like, oh, you're doing great, you're doing great.
yeah.
And like I start like pep talking myself,
Nice.
and then like it starts like to not be so much noise at the same time, and it's like, oh, so what's happening? Oh, maybe you don't feel so flowy, or you feel you're going slower. Like, oh, it's okay, maybe that's just your perception, and you're going as fast as you can go. So that this is like, what can we do right now? This is the pace we can hold. Okay, let's keep on with this. So I start like bringing myself back to what I can do in the present moment with what I have,
So it's you're
instead of what
negotiating.
yeah, instead of what I should do, because like your mind's negotiating to making you stop or making you like
Yeah.
whatever. So you just negotiate back in a positive way to convince yourself that you're doing actually a lot better than you think you're doing, and this is all
Brilliant.
you can do.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes it sounds like I sort of have it figured out, but I've had like the 24-hour event in January, like result wise, went pretty solid, but mind wise, I didn't have a good time. It was like very noisy the whole time, and it
Okay.
finished, and it finished noisy, and it was like I enjoyed a lot more the 3 miles the next day I had as a shakeout run, because everything was like peaceful, and it was like, this is it, this is where it clicked, and that's the run I remember. Sometimes it's not the event where I get like that click and that feeling and that peacefulness. Sometimes the whole event is like
Noisy.
this whole chaotic thing in my mind where I'm growing and learning and listening, and sometimes it takes till the next run to say, oh, this was it, and be peaceful. But it's worth it. Like, so, like some, I don't like, it's not the result of the event, it's what I'm learning through it. And even for that, even if like this feeling of peacefulness and like now I get it, and this absolute freedom of who I'm supposed to be or what I should do, and just simply being and existing, even if that just lasted for half a mile, it's absolutely worth it.
Fabulous.
Like, I would do it all over again just to have that half
That
mile of
piece. Yeah.
absolute freedom of just being.
Okay.
And it's just not with running. I think that you get that with your whole life, like in every single thing you do. Like we're so used to saying, I should do this, I should do blah, or I'm here and whoever is 10 steps ahead and I should be 15 steps ahead. And, or last year I was whatever, and you get this absolute nonsense belief that you were better last year, and it's not even true because your perception and your reality has changed. And I'm just getting back to, okay, what can I do right now? Like with what I have. You cannot ask for more, because that's like when you start losing the joy, and you cannot start comparing it with what you did before and what you want to do and you're not doing. Like, what can you do right now to the best of your ability? And that's it. And I think that that also frees you from all the resistance, because you're not you're not asking for more than you can give, and at the same time you're not, like, you're just focusing on what you can do instead of wasting all this energy on
We waste a lot of, I don't think you do, but I think I still do, and I think lots of us do waste a lot of energy just being in that story, whatever that story is in the moment, whether I can or I can't, or I should or I shouldn't, or it's right or it's wrong, or it's good or it's bad. It's like,
yeah, we're great storytellers, but like
yeah.
what we don't notice is like we're great like horror storytellers or
Oh my
drama
God.
storytellers. And
Yeah,
we could like,
we can
it's like,
change that story in an
yeah.
instant. Yeah.
And it's up to you. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It requires hard work, but
But you've got to know you're doing it. It's like, I often describe our mind is like we're creating a movie moment by moment by the thoughts we pay attention to. And we can be creating a horror or a comedy or a crime or a drama, but by the thoughts we're paying attention to, but we forget we're doing it and we think it's real. And we forget we're not only the actor or actress in this movie that we're creating, we're also the director, the producer, the special effects team. And it's like we are creating it, but we don't, until we can see that, until we can realize that we can't change it. But when we do, then it's very easy to just, it's about stopping, just stop going down, stop listening to that thought in that moment, or
and take responsibility. I think that's like a huge thing.
oh,
Like,
yeah,
it's so much easier to blame your situation, the people around you, the
oh yeah,
everything. But the moment you take responsibility of every single thing, it's like
it is,
you have no more excuses because it's up to you, right? So
and it is
I think
100% of the time, 100% of the time.
I
Sometimes
think that's also
feels like
something that
it's
changed my life. Yeah, that's something that changed my life a lot. Like, I haven't found a thing where I've taken 100% responsibility of my actions, where I'm not at peace or satisfied, or where I don't know where to go. I'm not saying it went amazing. It could go horrible, but at least it's like it was 100% on me. So now I know what to do.
yeah.
And it's a journey. Like, it's something like that also, like, this resistance thing is because we think there's like an end goal for something or whatever we're chasing, and we need to stop chasing,
We never get
because
there.
yeah, it's just a journey. Everything's like, whatever you're doing is just another break into whatever you're getting next, and then that's over. And I'm gonna insert my cheerful nihilism that right now, in the end, it really, nothing really matters, because it's like you get cling to something because you think it's yours, but it's not actually yours. Like, running wise, fitness is not yours. You can lose it because you get sick, because you get
Oh
injured,
yeah,
whatever. It's not yours. And try like when you try to hold on to it, everything goes horrible. That's something that also like freed me a lot. Like, when I started to get very, very fit, I wanted like to cling into that and make it perfect, and that nothing screwed up my fitness. And it was just horrible and stressful.
taking away.
So now, yeah, so now it's just like building blocks, getting confident, and if whatever reason happens to whatever, or if something screws with the build up, like, I'm confident on of what I've learned and what my body can do. So, because it's not mine.
No.
And that's with everything, like your job, it's not 100% sure, like secure, like your life. whatever you do, whatever you're chasing, nothing's like 100%
Nothing
there.
is.
So
And that,
what you have is what you have right now.
that's right.
And that's it. So why
And
are we worrying about what you did before and what you're gonna do tomorrow? Like have goals, like to have like a path and just like to inspire you to do something today.
and
But
it's
that's
so,
it.
so easy to forget that.
Yeah, because we live in a society that instills us that if we're not chasing, we're not worth it.
Yeah.
And it's like we need to stop chasing external stuff and start like rediscovering ourselves. It's like it's I've known like you normally ask people like who are you and they're gonna tell you their name or their job or their hobby, but like
Who are you?
truly in essence who you are, like no one really knows it or they never even discovered it or who they want to be or what would they want to be like as a being, not like a
Mhm.
functional person in society. So
I
I
think
think is
one of
yeah.
those moments I got a massive insight that really sort of, it's like waking up from your thinking, I guess. That's how I see it. It's like waking up from the thinking into the being, was when I got breast cancer in 2012, when I was training for my first marathon. And I had a lot on the speed thing, like wanting to go faster and reading all these books about running, the art of running faster, and it wasn't happening. My little legs wouldn't go fast. And again, what you resist persists. It's the same thing. But then when I got breast cancer and I had surgery, and I think I'm 100% sure I've told you this before, but as soon as I could, I was back running, because my whole experience about running had shifted very quickly from just getting fitter to something much deeper. It wasn't about wanting to get fitter. It was about, I seemed to just relax and my mind settled down. But I still had this, I want to get faster. And then I got sick and got breast cancer. As soon as I could, I was back out running again. But there'd been a massive shift inside at some level through the experience, because I stopped trying. It didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that I had the health and ability to be able to get out and run. I didn't care how fast or slow or whatever. I was just really enjoying being in the moment and being there. And the funniest thing happened, because that was May, and at Christmas I got a prize at the running club for getting the most PBs. And yet I wasn't even trying. But before
You
that,
stopped chasing. You stopped chasing and you were just doing it.
just doing. And so that was such a revelation and funny experience. But it's very easy to slip back into that. I want to get faster, or I want this, I want that. And but I know it's almost like there's that getting tricked by the mind on others slipping out of that and coming back into being and seeing, and gratitude has a lot to go with it as well. It's like being grateful for, because all we have is this moment. The rest is the past is a ghost in our mind. The future is a fantasy. None of it exists now. And even as we remember, it isn't real, because we feel.
Yeah. We feel it with a lot of stuff, it's like we're sharing this moment, but my reality is based on my perception. Your reality is based on your perception, and the actual reality, it's just a blur. So
Yeah. So we pay attention in different ways, and we delete some of the information, we distort it, we generalize depending on our individual filters that how we pay attention.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So we're about to hit the 45-minute mark, and I would like to ask you if you would if a friend came over and told you like I don't know like how to start paying attention to my thoughts or how to start changing my beliefs or how to be more present, what advice would you give them? Or do you have like any tips and tricks under your Steve?
I notice the feeling. Because there's information in the feeling. The feeling's not telling us about what's going on out there. The feeling's not telling us about how hard the run is, or that our partner's annoying, or that, you know, what our bank account looks like. It's not telling us about that. It's not telling us about anything out there. Our feelings telling us about the quality of our thinking in the moment. It's like a temperature gauge in a car. Temperature gauge in a car's got one job only. It's not telling you how fast the car's going. It's just telling you the temperature of the car. So our feelings are telling us about the quality of our thinking in the moment. So it's feedback. It's telling us, you know, what's going on, what we're paying attention to.
But yeah.
And then when you're aware of the voice, then you can pay attention and acknowledge and listen and negotiate.
Yeah, like one thing like I found out like helped me a lot at the beginning. Now I do it like sort of without thinking about it. If I'm not in movement and I start getting like old like noises and stuff, I'm not at the opportunity where I can just start moving and start like releasing energy and stuff. Something that helped me a lot, it's like breathing exercises, like
Oh,
inhale in 4, like the square breathing exercise. Inhale in 4, hold 4, exhale in 4, hold
brilliant.
4, and repeat it. Because
Yeah,
that way, like you're just focusing on your breathing and on this pattern.
beautiful.
So that way you start of quiet the voices where you learn to listen to them. So you get like this, you get yourself back into a peaceful, calm situation where you can then address what's happening.
And the breathing, you know, breathing is the elixir of life, isn't it? So like when we are anxious, we either hold our breath or we do the shallow breathing. So when you're doing the box breathing, you're focusing on the breath. So it's distracting you from the thoughts, whilst you're also calming everything down with the breath.
Yeah, you're getting back into your parasympathetic system instead of getting into the
Yeah,
sympathetic.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like just like you if you have horrible thoughts about whatever thing, you just be aware that it's not actually like that. That's not 100% real. It's just the thought you're having, and your perception can be shifted. So like don't whatever thought you have, don't embrace it fully. It's like
Don't believe
you
you're
can
thinking.
yeah, you can choose like what to filter and not to filter, and you can do like this conscious work of just sitting with. I think that also is a big problem because nowadays no one sits with themselves, but you can sit with yourself and like not get distracted with your phone or TV or whatever, just in silence with yourself, and you're gonna start having a lot of thoughts and observe it and just see like, oh, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. And something that also works for me is like I'll have a notebook, and if I start having like thoughts and stuff that I'm not quite understanding why, I'll write it down and then I'll come back and answer it. And it's a lot of things that I didn't know I had inside of me just poured out with this single thought. But if the thought's a question or negative, my answer is going to be positive. So that way I'm reframing the thought
Yeah.
and I'm giving my mind a solution, because what your mind wants is a solution
Oh,
for whatever they
nice.
think it's like holding you back.
Yeah.
And
So
the
you're a mentor. It's like you're your own mentor.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you know you best, so you just need to listen to yourself. But you need like this, like you need this moment of quiet for yourself, at least 5 minutes a day, where you actually listen to yourself, because we listen to everybody, but we don't listen to ourselves. So I think that's very important.
That's
And
really good. Really, really good advice. And listening and writing it down is a really good idea. And
yeah, and like also if you're being stuck in a really negative train of thoughts, start your day with a gratitude list. You don't need to put 10 or 15 or whatever. Maybe you just have one, and that's enough to shift your mind into, oh, something good's going on in my life.
yeah.
And then you start your day like with a different shift of energy.
Yeah.
And if you're still having like this a lot of problems like with your thoughts and it's still negative and stuff, when you see when you're aware you have these negative thoughts, maybe you're still not able to observe them and offer yourself a solution, but you're going to be able to say one grateful thing, like maybe everything sucks, but I'm grateful that I'm here with my family, or even just being grateful that you're still alive. It's like something positive, and you put a stop to the negative train, and that way you start like learning to be able to observe or
Nice.
have yourself your own tools.
That's fantastic. That's really, really useful advice. I they one thing that I became aware of recently with Mel Robbins, when you introduced me to Mel Robbins, and I was listening to her, and she said about when we're very busy, like, you know, people get so bogged down with their life, like there's no time for them, they're tired, they've got so much going on, or they've gone through a lot of stuff and they're overwhelmed. And so she talks about adding more to the day, but it's like by adding something for you, because a lot of people are doing everything that they think they should do, but they're not actually doing something that they want to do, that's important to them, or, you know. So it's that's another way of feeling better. It's like, you know, and questioning why are you doing what you do? You know, what's in it for you? What's important about this? So sometimes we don't even know why we do what we do. We just do it because someone else has told us
We're
it's
supposed to do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's coming
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
you know, it's like, and they'll, I mean, I love to run now. It's like, and so, you know, you don't have to do it because I do it. Find something that you want to do that feels good for you, you know.
Yeah, like that's what works for me, but you do you.
You do you
Just, yeah.
in your way, you know. But it's some people just don't know because they're so not used to listening or being in tune with their values and what's important. They're so used to doing what they think they should.
Because
um
I think like we're taught that we need to follow certain paths and that you have only options on this certain paths. But the truth is, each and every single individual is supposed to create their own path, because that's how you give whatever's your being to the world, right? To the whole. Like you create your own path. That's how you grow, and that's how you give back to everyone, because that's how, like, in my own path, I grow and I learn, and then I can teach you what I've learned. And then in your own path, you're going to teach me what you learned. But I didn't have to walk your path to get your knowledge. We only share it from different paths. Instead, if we all walk the same path, well, we all just learn the same thing and get depressed in the same way. So it's not worth it.
so it's understanding it, and or that realizing that you can do that, and it's important to do that, and there's a freedom comes from that rather than doing what you think you should do.
And actions, I think that's something that I had mentioned. It's not just thinking about it and wishing about it. It's like taking action,
It's
and
just a
even the
it's just a good
tiniest
idea.
action.
It's just a good idea till you take action.
Yeah. And
You
like do
take
it.
a
Like
step.
don't wait for the perfect moment. That's how this started. Like we were talking about, it's a good idea, but
Let's
if we
do
wait
it.
for the perfect moment, it's never gonna happen. So yeah. Um I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, because not we're gonna talk forever, and
We
we're
just keep
gonna
going down tangents now.
yeah. But like yeah, we're gonna upload this to YouTube. Drop your questions, drop any subject would you would like us to discuss. And I actually enjoyed this one.
Me too. It's like what we do. We just have
Yeah.
conversations. Okay, thank you so much. That's been awesome. I'm just going to pause the recording now.